Welcome to Diversity Conversations, where we engage in thought-provoking dialogue to identify leadership solutions to today's most challenging conflicts. Stream live each week, Saturday 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Hosted by Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategist and CEOs Eric Ellis and Tommie Lewis. Join us and add your voice to this engaging diversity conversation.
Good morning, Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, the United States, and the world. My name is Eric Ellis, and I'm the President and CEO of Integrity Development Corporation. And I'm joined this morning by my good friend and brother,
Tommie Lewis, President and CEO of Make It Plain Consulting. Good morning, Eric.
What's up, Tommie? What up, baby? What up?
And we have our gear on as if we have something else to do.
That's right.
Besides our beloved diversity conversations.
That's exactly right. And we've been working on our games. And so we're excited about another practice round today.
Yep.
It's a scramble. So at 1 o'clock this afternoon, Tommie and I will be on the same team doing a scramble, having fun, enjoying the game that we love. Last Thursday morning, we were out at Beckett at 6:30 a.m. Playing golf, having some great swings, a few off swings, but that's what golf is. But it was just a blessing. Tommie, wasn't it a blessing? Just to be out there?
It was a blessing, Eric. And I'll tell you that if our community, everyone doesn't play golf.
Right.
However, I would like to share that God's earth is a blessing and amazing. If you have the opportunity, the will, the ability to get up early in the morning when the sun is rising, no matter where you are in the world, to maybe get out and enjoy some of his blessing. Golf courses are, for the most part, pristine. They're well groomed and taken care of. We can easily do that through a walk,
right,
a jog,
a
cup of coffee, a cup of tea.
Right.
Just seeing the sun rise, it's a reminder of how small we are as humans and how big the opportunity that God has blessed us with every day to wake up and, in our case, have fellowship with one another.
Right. And I know people that don't play golf maybe think about the way that golf sort of is positioned and put forth. And it feels like a game of rich people or old white males or something like that. But golf can be everybody's game. And for Tommie and I, it's not the pristine prestige aspect of golf. I don't think we ever think about that.
Right.
We are athletes, and so we love that this is something else that we can compete at, even by ourselves, just us against the golf course. We are lifelong learners, so we like trying to get better at something, so it's intellectually stimulating. But it's not just about what your mind knows, it's about what your body knows. But then when you're standing on green grass and the dew is on the ground and the sun is rising up over the trees and there's nobody in front of you or in back of you, and you literally can hear the birds sing, Tommie and I realize that we are free, that we are blessed. We have so many laughs out there, just he and I laughing about our game. Tommie tried to help me get a par. He did. He tried to help me get a birdie. He was really saying, "E, this way." Nah, I hear you, Tommie. I ain't saying about you. I hear you, Tommie. I got this one. And I didn't take his advice. My ball was, it almost left the whole green. So we just chuckled together because of his kindness and his humility. He didn't bring it up to me. I think he told me that he just started kicking his leg. I laughed about that. So we love the time that we have together as family out there with God and with this beautiful game, enjoying being free, not thinking about all the negative news or business and all the stresses of things that we're trying to work on. Just Tommie, our golf clubs, and great feelings.
Great to see you this morning, Brooke. And our other community members, continue to chime in, like, subscribe. Telephone number is available for you to call in. We'll bring that up in a little bit later as folks are joining us. Good morning. For some folks, it's 9 a.m., 9:30, in the morning. For others, it's 5:30 in the morning, maybe even 3:30 in the afternoon. Wherever you are, thank you for joining us every morning, every Saturday morning for Diversity Conversations.
Tommie, what were any critical diversity conversations that you observed or took part of this week?
Had about 2, maybe 3, very quickly. My mentor, who's in Nashville, Tennessee, had reached out to me via text and asked me, what's the state of DE&I? And Eric, it was I'm really working hard, literally 12 hours a day, sometimes 14 hours a day. In fact, I was in the office this morning at 3:30 this morning because I'm trying to take care of a lot of business before I take an extended vacation. And so even that ask was a little bit much for my plate, right? And so the simple text was, what's the state? And I shared, if I can get back with you.
Yeah, because you and I were going a deep dive, man.
Weeks, right? That'd be great. And he said, well, if you can just send me some links, even that, I have to carve out some time later on this week or something to do that because my.
Oh, I'm gonna send you some stuff, bro.
Okay,
I'm gonna send you some stuff. Yeah.
And that thank you.
I'm gonna send you articles, some other things, man.
So I will be able to do that. Thank you. I should have asked you.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. I could do that. And so another diversity conversation that I had was working with a client. Been with the client for about 4.5 years. 4 years ago, we were doing about 8 different pieces of work with them. Community work, working with their senior leadership team, working with their DEI executive, working with their employee resource groups, doing some training, etc. The DEI champion transitioned about 1.5 years ago, and I saw some writing on the wall. Very quickly, our work went from 8 significant pieces of business, deep dive, significant movement in the organization, narrowed down to 1. A month and a half, 2 months ago, it just paused. And this week was the diversity conversation. Hey, we're going to discontinue. There's a good and bad thing there. The good news is I saw the writing on the wall. Makes sense. And I guess the other good news, not really bad, is that I had the opportunity to offer up, we do more than just this. In fact, we are not a DEI company. We're a human resources management company that we do have some expertise in DEI. People management, people systems, processes, culture, all the above. So I think it may have been difficult for them. I saw it coming, pivot, right? And that's pretty much the game here. These conversations more and more, not only on business side, but personally, Eric, is great. Last shout out and last point is that I want to give my beloved wife, Penny, a shout out.
Okay.
Because she has a personality that she tells the truth, at least to me. Hard truth sometimes. And she articulates how she feels. I do know that she doesn't articulate everything because of my reaction. Right? There's certain things I don't think about or don't care about. And so she tempers her conversation with me, but basically 90% of the time she speaks her truth.
Now, hold on before you can go. Now, that's wisdom, you all. Temper the conversation because we want to make sure that we don't hijack our partner. So that's wisdom.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that pause. And yesterday we had a difficult conversation and I had to channel my inner Penny. Eric, something's been in my crawl for about 2.5 months. And I'm creating my own narratives, things that are not true. I know what is true, etc. But my spirit is just like, blah. So yesterday, when I channeled my inner Penny. Here's how I'm feeling. I don't need a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need you to, blame me or turn it on me or gaslight me or whatever. I don't need any of that.
Right.
But when I said it, I felt better. I did. I felt better, hands down. And so I want to give the shout out that every conversation is a learning opportunity. It's a gift. And so as we talk about these conversations, they're absolute gifts and blessings.
Absolutely. Tommie, I love all of those. A few critical conversations that I had this week. One of them was yesterday. And after the conversation, I told Judy, I said, Judy, I found the perfect client for me.
Yeah.
And it's a person like you in a company like yours.
Yeah.
I had met this sister at the conference board conference a month or so ago. And she had heard me talking about core. And she just overheard and said, hey, I want to learn more about that. That's interesting. That might be something that could work for us. And so we had our conversation yesterday. And it was a powerful conversation. She was very curious. She said, man, I need that case study. And I shared with her the 4 phases of core. And I shared with her the results that we just recently got on the inclusion survey from 23 to 2025. And she was just really like, oh, man, this is perfect. And she's at an organization that's a consulting firm. They have a couple thousand people. And they really are trying to stay with DEI, but they're looking at, is there anything else that we should be considering? And so I was real delighted to be able to have that conversation and to be talking to somebody who's so bright and curious and can use possibly what we are doing. The second huge conversations that I had this week, Tommie, was with our client that did the inclusion survey. We did now focus groups where we are following up and sharing the data with employees and getting their feedback and reaction. So we made a change because of what's happening in the country. In the past, Tommie, we've had, African-American focus groups and then a white male focus group, women's focus group, LGBTQ. We would do it like that and talk to people in those affinity sort of focus group sessions. And this year we didn't.
Okay.
We put everybody together. And I wasn't sure about that, man. I was thinking this could get into a debate and we might have to go into a workshop. I'm trying not to do that. But Tommie, I'll tell you, man, it was huge, hugely positive. When we shared the results, the people were kind of blown away, said, that's encouraging. They said, but we are feeling that. And one person said in one of the focus groups, he said, well, I just feel like the world today is just more open and people are feeling more optimistic and I said, no, that's not the world that we're living in today. People are under more stress. They have high levels of anxiety. Division is almost at an all-time high. He said it is. He said, then it feels like what we're doing here is influencing me in such a deep way that I'm even seeing the world differently. And I was like, wow. He said, so as Louisville Water makes me a better citizen, a better employee, then I become a better citizen.
Yeah, let's unpack that a little bit, Eric. Let's unpack that.
Right.
What, and I don't want to go negative at all.
Right.
Just want to unpack it. What, from your perspective, was his words saying, his spirit saying, and his actions saying?
I think, Tommie, that people, especially the dominant culture, have had such negative expectations about DEI that when the reality is something hugely positive, it's overwhelming for them and shocking. And those principles and those philosophies begin to be owned by them internally. And I know that they're taking these skills to their families and they're taking them to the community. And I'll tell you, that's why I don't really get mad at people that follow Trump hook, line, and sinker. People are followers, man. You know what I'm saying? They're not really leaders. They're being influenced, and so you're just trying to give a different influence here.
So I'm curious, as you were sharing, if I were to get a contract or make some money, say, 20 or 30% more than what I make now, all is good. I mean, all is really good, right? I'm not really struggling.
Right.
In fact, I know 3 or 4 other people. I know about 100 other people that have a tick up in their revenue income.
Right.
None of us are hurting.
Right.
The world is doing better.
Right.
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 From my vanishing point, I have a 20 to 30% tick up in my income, my revenue. My perspective is I am doing better. My proximity to others is that they are doing better. And so I may move to the generalization is that we're all good.
Right.
But is that true?
Right. No.
No.
Right.
So even with the enlightenment of knowledge and information, maybe pushing oneself beyond their own sphere of understanding, which is enlightenment, right? There is a phenomenon of naivete.
Yeah.
When folks come into this, and a lot of times we experience this when we go to college. For those who go to college, so you transition from high school, which is a rigor, etc. When you go to university, it is actually that it's universal knowledge, and then there's specific colleges, which is a canon, right? There is a phenomenon at the freshman, sophomore, particularly sophomore level, and sophomore means educated fool. That's what sophomore is. Latin word. It's educated fool. Saying you only you know a little bit to know nothing. You're still a fool, but you're enlightened. Like, oh, I know some things now. In training, in skills building, even in experience, I would like us all, myself included, to caution our generalization of our experiences and the realities of not only ourselves but others.
Right.
Just
I would say that I think that this person was far simpler than that.
Indeed. Okay.
So he's not really in any way. He never even internalized that he was different. I mean, he didn't see that. I mean, he didn't see that. He just saying, "Hey, what's Tommie, he missed the whole thing, man." So to ask you to think more deeply about the world, he's probably not watching anything. News. He's a hunter. He's just doing his thing, fishing and hunting.
Yeah.
And he has no real clue what the world is doing. And so I don't know if I need to drag him into that, into the enlightenment of, hey man, the world is. And I said it to him. Yeah. And then he just said, I was like, huh? Well, I guess maybe I'm being helped so much that I see the world differently. Okay, whatever.
Yeah. And I like what you said, Eric, and what you did. You gave him his flowers and his gold medal for his own achievement.
Right.
We're all in different places on this journey.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. And then, like I say, the other people, it was encouraging to hear people say, and in these focus groups, some of them turned to me and said, Eric, what you guys are doing is making a difference.
Yes, sir.
And I was grateful about that. Looks like we have our guest here with us today. Yeah. And so we are going to bring up Dr. Apollo Emeka. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm incredible. How are you all doing today?
Outstanding, man. Outstanding. We're just warming up the waiting for you to arrive, and glad that you were able to get through whatever technical challenges may happen on our way to the show. But we're glad to have you.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you kept them real warm because, as a matter of fact, while I was supposed to be on my way here, I was listening to some more of the episodes. So I'm sure you kept them real warm for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Doctor. Again, we're excited. Tommie Lewis here. Just to let you know, if you don't already, our community, our beloved community, they span the globe, most particularly in the United States. They're very active. They join us, and they're always eager to hear from folks like you. This is a conversation as always, but I would like to tee us up by welcoming you to Diversity Conversations and allowing you to have the opportunity to share a little bit more about yourself and your background and what brings you here with us today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. Thank you for having me. Like I said, I've heard, I think maybe 4 or 5 episodes now, and I really enjoy the tone of the conversation and the different guests that you bring on. So I'm super honored to be one of them now and to be in the conversation. And when I'm listening to the show, I can hear you all reacting, but I can't see the chat popping off. And so now I get to see the chat popping off too. So that's great. I'm happy to be here with you all too in the chat. What is up, global folks? I'm actually in Panama right now, Panama City, Panama, and maybe we'll get into that in a second. But you know, I view life through the lens of big decisions, and the first decisions that really matter to us are ones that we're born into and that we inherit. And so I inherited my parents' decisions. My father is a Black man from the South, from Arkansas. I know for a fact that he brags about the most cotton that he ever picked, which I think was 246 pounds in one day. And he joined the Air Force and met my mother in Corvallis, Oregon. She was from Central Oregon and had never really left Oregon. And they met when he was stationed there in Corvallis, and my mom was going to, I think, University of Oregon. And they hit it off and got married, and this was in the early 60s, before the Loving decision had passed. And so my father's, there's this Black man from the South, from Arkansas, this white woman from Central Oregon. My grandmother, my dad's mom, was like, hey, you need to carry your marriage license with you. It needs to be on you at all times. Wow. And that story, I remember my dad telling me that story at a really young age, and it hit me that, oh my goodness, my parents' love and relationship was considered illegal in a big part of the country when they got married. And so, that is one of the, I think, most pivotal decisions that has shaped me. And that's what I was born into, is this kind of like, follow your heart. And if it means going against the grain, go with it. And so I was born. The reason why my name is Apollo is because my parents still kind of, okay, follow your heart. I had teenage brothers when I was born, and they loved Apollo Creed. Yeah. And they were like, what about Apollo? For Apollo Creed. And my parents like, yeah, okay. All right, cool. And so that was another decision that shaped my life that I inherited. I inherited my name from my brothers. Really, they made this decision. My parents gave them the power to make that decision and say, okay, you know what? Yeah, cool, go for it. Right. And so I think about my name and how much my name has impacted my life. And it's a decision that I've inherited. And we're born into all these inherited decisions. And the first decision that I made that really, I think, shaped my life, again, it was my parents gave me the power to make the decision, and it was whether or not to be enrolled in school. Starting in 4th grade, they let me decide that.
Is that right? And
that is 100%. And most of the time, it was, I don't want to be in school. And so that was a really pivotal decision. But every day I woke up, I had the power to be like, do I want to be enrolled in school? And sometimes I'd miss my friends, or I'd feel guilty that I wasn't learning anything, and I would pop back in. And then I'd wake up the next day and be like, you know what? I don't want to be. So I ended up dropping out of high school and going straight into the military. And so the first academic program that I ever graduated from was military intelligence school, where they basically teach you a very structured process for making decisions. And so I was given this decision making power at a really young age, and then I learned through the military, and then later went on to the FBI, and continued my military career alongside that in the reserves, and became a Green Beret. But I see my life, and really everyone's life, as the consequence of really big decisions. And the biggest decisions that impact our lives are the ones that we don't even make. They're the ones that our parents and their parents and their parents made, that kind of create an environment for us. So that's the long short version of my history, and why I am the way I am.
Right. So let me ask you this. Your mother died. What age were you when your mother passed?
That's right. We had this conversation. My mother passed. I was 17 when my mother passed.
And how did that impact you? And I guess, were you in the military then, or did you go to the military after?
Yeah. So I went to the. I mean, that was a very pivotal decision in my life. I grew up watching a lot of TV. When I was not in school, I was like watching TV, and we didn't have cable. So do I got any other like middle of the day I Love Lucy, Days of Our Lives folks in the house right now? Because wasn't no Cartoon Network. Okay. But I loved watching Saturday Night Live, and I loved watching the X-Files. And so when I was 13, I was like, I'm going to be in the FBI, or I'm going to be on Saturday Night Live. And I was not a good student. I was very curious and passionate, but I was not a good student. And I was a huge, huge mama's boy. Mm. So my mother got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer when I just turned 17, and died 5 months later. And I was thinking, wow, okay. So I was in complete and total free fall. I was kind of hanging out with folks that were not doing the healthiest things. And so I knew that if I was going to be on Saturday Night Live or be in the FBI, I would have to change things. And so, people say there's no shortcuts in life, and I reject that completely. And I had to reject it because I needed shortcuts. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of stuff I did not have. So if there's no shortcuts, then I am up the creek. So, I was like, okay, I need discipline. What's a shortcut to getting discipline? Because I don't have it in myself to wake up every day and do the things I need to do. I'm gonna join the military. I'm gonna go at this pivotal moment where I'm kind of in free fall, hanging out with the wrong folks. I'm gonna join the military, and they're going to force me. They're going to instill discipline in me.
That's interesting. We've got a comment made here in our community, and can you see it?
This the main one.
Yeah, that's a very interesting journey, Apollo. If you want to react to that,
around confidence.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, I view everything through decisions. There's so much emphasis on actions and habit and grit, and have your morning routine, check all the boxes and do all the things and get all the certificates. And, so our answer when we want something is to do more stuff, right? You want more confidence? I mean, this doctor in front of my name is just there. So that way, when you introduce me, you'd be like, oh, here's Dr. Apollo Emeka. And then I can be like, oh, you know what, Tommie and Eric, please call me Apollo.
That's hilarious.
Please, come on now.
Right.
Oh. Right. But hey, you don't do it that first time. I'm gonna be like, hey, put some respect on my name. What happened? What happened? Right. I earned that. Right. But so we go, when we're trying to build confidence, we look for more things to do. Look for more clothes or cars or the house or the neighborhood or the people we know or the working out. There's something to do. And I think that when you make a big decision and a complete decision, like that is fully reflective of where you want to go and how you want to show up, you almost can render confidence irrelevant. That's my take, is if there's a thing that you want so bad and it's burning in your heart that you want it, then it doesn't matter if I have to look stupid for a little bit, because I know that on the other side of looking stupid, I'm going to get the thing that I want. I think the problem is that most people are trying to make the most out of what they have, not solve for the thing that they actually want. And so it's hard to work yourself up to get confidence to do a thing that's going to get you a thing that you don't even necessarily want. So I think that people work on the like push side of things, when if you can set that decision, you make a decision. Hey, I'm going to start a business, and this business is going to serve these kinds of people, make this much money, adhering to these values. And you look at that complete decision and it lights you up, then the confidence becomes irrelevant, because you have to do it. You just have to do it. So I think that we focus too much on the front side of confidence, of getting more certificates, on doing the things, when we need to focus on making big decisions and then just committing to it.
I'm going to ask one more question, Tommie, and then I'm going to let Tommie jump in. What's your experience in terms of, do people actually have something big that they're trying to achieve in life? Because I'm not sure if people really are there. My experience is that people want a lifestyle, and they kind of look around the world and they want to be rich, or they want to be successful, but I'm not sure if people give a lot of thought to big things that they want to accomplish. And I could be wrong. Maybe you have a different experience with that, or maybe that's something that you seek to unlock in people, is some clarity about that.
Man, you said you were going to give Tommie a chance. I'm going to take up 2 hours with this one. Tommie, oh man, you better put your question in the chat, homie.
All right.
Well, you know what? I think that this is such a salient question, and such an important point that you're making here. And I think so many people feel like they don't really have permission to want the thing that they actually want. And so we kind of just go along with the things that we feel like we should want. So here's an exercise. You can do this. Folks who are listening right now, you can take out, if you're in a place where you can take out a piece of paper and do this, I want you to do that. If not, just mentally go with me. So think about some of the goals that you have. Could be a professional goal, could be a personal goal. Okay, I'm literally going to be quiet for 15 seconds, and I'm going to let you think about something that you believe is important to you to achieve and accomplish in your life. All right, cool. I got the timer here. So, all right. So hopefully you have something in your mind right now that you believe is important. Now, remember what I talked about, being fulfilled in pursuing something that is truly fulfilling. All right, now I want you to go down the list of these goals, and I want you to give them a happiness rating. So if they cost you no effort, no time, if we just snapped our fingers and you got that thing, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy would you be? 1 is you would actually be disappointed, regretful, resentful, unfulfilled. 10 is you are over the moon, through the roof, super fulfilled. If you can picture that, if you have a list of 2 or 3 things, go ahead and assign a number.
Yeah.
And what I've found when I ask people to write out their goals and assign a number, that the average number is 6 or 7 on their goals. 6 or 7.
Right. Kind of low number is that, right?
Right? So it's like, wait a minute. Like, if 5 is miserable and 10 is ecstatic, you are like, if you could just snap your finger, and again, this costs you no effort, no time. If you could just snap your finger and have that thing, you'd be a 6 or a 7. You'd be 1 above neutral.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like, and so what I do is, when we talk about a complete decision, it's like, okay, well, we need to get that to a 10. What would it take to get that 6 or a 7 up to a 10? How do we need to reframe this? And then let's make a decision about how we're reframing it. So some of you all out there might be like, but Apollo, you ain't going to get me. I got 10s, baby. I got all 10s. So let's take that 10 now. And let's say, okay, you've got this goal. right next to it is a 10. I'm going to ask you the question of, let's say that we snap our fingers, no effort, no time, no energy. You get this thing, and it's actually a 3. The thing that you thought was going to be a 10 is actually a 3. What are some things that would explain it being a 3? And this is where we start to see we can actually make complete decisions, because then people say, "Oh, well, if I didn't have the love of my family, then this certainly would not be a 10. That it would be a 3 if I lost my relationships with my family, if I was unhealthy, if it made me compromise my values, and so this is the way that when people are like having a hard time figuring out what would really drive them, first it's like, find a thing. Do you have a thing that's actually truly a 10 that you want to go after? And if you don't, write it down and say, what is it? What do I need to make it a 10? What does it need to be? Not what can I do, not what's possible, not what's feasible. We worry about the feasibility after we figure out what you want. There is a time for figuring out how do we actually make it happen. But the first thing is, if it took no time, no effort, no energy at all, would it even make you happy? And so many people are like, kinda.
Yeah. So let me ask you, say that one of my goals is that makes me happy is peace of mind, right? I know that could be arbitrary, but peace of mind. And that peace of mind, as I'm defining it, is as where my stress level is low, I am gliding in the wind. Wherever the wind goes, I can just turn my rudder and go off in different directions. I am literally at holistic peace. It's a 10. I'm happy. But now other people, family members, co-workers, the stranger on the street comes into my orbit and disrupts my peace, i.e. happiness. So now my goal of peace, happiness, 10 is now directly and negatively influenced by outside conditions and other people. Now I'm down to a 3. Are you happy, Tommie? Nope. Why? I'm not at peace. Why? You want me to tell you the truth? Yeah, please. Because of you. Right? Because of you. It wasn't me. I was gliding at peace and happiness, right? And now you came on. So I want to know, with that situation, and if the other person that is disrupting my peace is a person that I value, I care about, I actually am interested in them achieving their 10. And part of their 10 is to come into my orbit and ask me to do something that may very well reduce my 10 to a 6. How do I pivot to care for the other person, to get them to be able to give me what I want, to stay at my 10, my peace and my happiness?
I love it. I love it. Well, first, I mean, you're already halfway there, because you have to decide that that's what you want. You have to decide that that's what you want. So earlier I used the term complete decision. And this is why I don't like goals, because goals, when you have a long list of goals, there's like almost no reconciling how they might conflict with each other. So some people might say, I want to do an Ironman, right? Like I want to do an Ironman, 26 miles running, 2 mile swim, 100-mile bike. Like that, yeah, okay, you're going to be fit. You might hurt yourself. You're going to have to train for probably 10 to 20 hours a week. Does that take you away from your family? So how does this thing impact your other goals, right? And I think that when you make a decision, a complete decision almost sounds like, I got a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. And a complete decision almost sounds like a toddler trying to tell you a story. That's how you know it's right, is if it runs on. If you're like, okay, I want peace of mind and I want to glide and blow with the wind, And I also want, when people come into my orbit to disrupt my peace of mind, I also want to help them get peace of mind. And I want, like, literally, if you make your big decision like a run-on sentence, then you start to identify, okay, well, what are some of the key actions or conditions that I have to create
That's good.
in order to achieve that, right? Because you can go and you can try to achieve that. I want to run an Ironman. I want $1 billion. I want to be the healthiest person on earth. But like, smash them together. Smash those things together into a complete decision. And then you find out what are the things that you actually have to do in order to meet that run-on sentence, in order to meet those decisions. What are the things that you can do, the habits that you can build, or the conditions that you can create that are going to make it so that when people, that not only do you preserve your peace, but that when people come into your orbit, they're more likely to preserve or increase their peace.
Yeah.
What do you have to do?
Yeah. Oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah, that is,
because
yeah.
I have an answer for me, for us. Right. One thing I can do is simply be happy.
Oh, snap.
Make the decision just to be happy. Right. And really, literally. And I love what you just said, because if they're coming into my orbit, I think that I'm giving other people power to diminish my happiness.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I said, so come into my orbit, I'm going to be happy. My mindset is happiness. My behavior is happiness. My speech is happiness. Are you happy? I'm happy because I'm making a complete decision to be happy.
That's it.
Be happy in another room. Yep.
That's it.
Right.
That's it. And when you write those other people into your decision, then they're accounted for. Because a lot of times when our confidence wavers, is we're like, oh, wait a minute, does this mean that I can't have my thing? Like, does them coming in here mean? No, it's like you've accounted for them. You know that people are going to come in, and you know that that's your vulnerability, is that when people bring you negativity, it hits you, right? So you don't have to worry about, do I have my own back, because it's written into your decision.
Yes, sir.
That's powerful. And I'll add to that, my finance director, when my daughter interned for me 15 years ago, she told her a major lesson. She said to her, she says, money's not emotional. She said, we either have it or we don't. So we don't sweat it if we don't have it. We don't go freaking out and all like that. We either have it or we don't. I would say with that big sort of thing that he's trying to, my peace, then my view was, I don't let you move that. In other words, you come in as a noisemaker trying to interrupt, and I don't allow my emotions to get hijacked by what you're doing. I literally observe that. Yeah. Like, hey, I see you doing that, but that's not going to affect me, because I don't have to get engaged with what you're doing. And I've done that. My son and I, we were at Black Tech Week. And we went to dinner, me and my two boys. And so a man came in with his friends. He was a police officer. He asked my son, had he read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad? My son said yes. And I don't know if he really read it. And so he told him, audio. So the guy said, well, tell me what you learned. And so he was making up stuff. And so the guy started sort of pinning him down around, you didn't read the book. And he was almost in an argument, and I interrupted that to say, hey, man, are you making investments, or are you an investor on the side or something else? He said, yeah. I said, no wonder you're interested. And I pivoted the whole conversation from an argument to complimenting him on being somebody who's investing and and then my son made a pivot as well and started picking his brain around those things. But I love it. I think that you're so right about, when we have the big thing that we want to achieve, we don't allow others to necessarily hijack that. What's the big idea big decision that you've made for yourself?
I love this conversation so much. And I want to acknowledge Brooke in the chat, who said, made a big decision, a complete decision that I will be my true self and not doubt myself. That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, there we go. And also Brooke said that I know kids. I do know kids for sure. Because I am one still on the inside, and because I have two rambunctious ones. But one of the things that I want to point out here, and I guess this kind of will answer your question, Eric, is that it's easier for us to just make a decision like I'm not going to doubt myself than it is to make a decision about where we want to be. Because your peace, for instance, or your doubt, Brooke, there are environments where you're more likely to doubt yourself. There are going to be environments where you are more likely to doubt yourself. And there are going to be environments where you are walking with a cool confidence all the time. What are those environments, right? And what's the difference? And we are so conditioned, again, because we're born into decisions. We don't decide what language we speak. We don't decide where we go to school or where we go to church. Those decisions are all made for us. And so we're so conditioned to just saying, okay, well, here are my cards. And now I got to try to be this person inside of this decision box that I'm in, right? But the big challenge is, well, what conditions, Tommie, are you most at peace? And how do you shift your decision box so that you are just more likely to be at peace? Brooke, how do you make a decision that's so big that you just wake up every day and you're now in this new place where you are less likely to have darts thrown your way, to where you're going to doubt yourself, or to be in rooms where people are throwing darts or are dismissing you or are calling into question your credibility, right? So for me, I'm always looking for, my background is pretty cool. Like, dropped out of high school, really kind of dropped out of fourth grade. I have a doctorate. I was in the FBI, Green Beret, which is U.S. Army Special Forces. I've done a bunch of hard stuff, but I've never done anything I don't want to do. I swear, like my accomplishments do not come from this just like wrought iron, run until your toenails pop off, like discipline. I step back and I see here's how I want to be in the world. How do I put myself inside of an environment? How do I put myself inside of a decision box where those things are going to be easy, where the things I want are going to be easier to do and more rewarded, and the things I don't want are going to be harder to do and are going to be punished? So going into the military and that when I was 17, did that. It made it harder to be undisciplined than to be disciplined. At home, if I had just stayed kicking it at home with my pops, it was way easier to be undisciplined there. Right. So the big decision that I've made recently is my wife is born and raised in Pasadena, California, just outside of Los Angeles. Grew up in Altadena, California, which is just like Pasadena and Altadena are Altadena is almost a residential part of Pasadena. And Altadena, lost 94 homes and structures in the fires, this Eaton fire in January of this year, 2025. And we had to evacuate. My mother-in-law, my wife's mom's house burned down, her childhood home. And we were in this moment of reflection, and we were reflecting on everything, making good money, kids going to the really good school, living in a beautiful neighborhood. But, just feeling all of the social tension, political tension, economic tension, and now climate tension that was literally fire knocking on our door. We were evacuated. And I was talking to a friend and I said, I feel like I got to get out of the country for a minute. And she said, well, have you ever been to Panama? I was just there and it was amazing. And I was like, nope, never been. So I got off the phone with her and I Googled some stuff about Panama. And the first thing when I have a big idea is, especially the more exciting it is, the more I try to kill it. So I was like, okay, but like tsunamis. Okay, I'm like tsunamis in Panama. I'm like kidnapping Panama. Like I had all these, like everything that I had ever heard or imagined. And I'm like, wait, no tsunamis. Safe from like coast to coast. And so I couldn't find a reason not to go. So 20 minutes later, I walked into my wife and we were the Airbnb we were evacuated into. And I said, are we supposed to move to Panama? And she said, maybe. And about 48 hours later, we decided. And 30 days later, our whole family was in Panama. So again, big, huge, complete decision. Never been here before. And now we're here. My kids are going to bilingual schools. We walk everywhere. I'm supporting clients that are across borders. And just it was the best move that we could have made, but it was a big decision.
Wow. Okay, I got to follow that. That's huge. So first of all, before I don't want to end this episode without saying to you that there's a TED Talk in you. So this is those big ideas that are worth telling.
Thank you so much, Eric.
And so I would say to you, let me come back to make sure I have the concept right. You said that people need to make decisions that are so big that the details almost don't matter. And so help us to brainstorm what are some of the kind of big ideas that people might have, because I don't even know if people's minds are framed around thinking about that. What are some ways you could help people begin to sort of brainstorm what are the big ideas in their life?
Yeah. There was a guest on your show who was an entrepreneur, lovely woman. And she got the entities set up and the licenses set up for her business 19 years ago and started operating 9 years ago. I don't know if you all remember this conversation, but you were asking her, hey, I think Tommie, you asked her, hey, what was the what was that gap? What was the 10-year gap? And she said, well, we got to have all of our, we got to get our ducks in a row. We got to be legit. We got to be legal. We got to be. And so like so many people that are thinking about an aspiration that they have, they're thinking about all these technical things. Right. And then she was like, okay, but then I figured, all right, now's the time, rubber meets the road. I gotta actually decide to do this thing. And I'm reminded of this story on Masterclass. I watched Richard Branson's Masterclass. And this dude was at an airport. Richard Branson started Virgin Records and Virgin, Airlines. This dude was at an airport, couldn't get a flight where he wanted to go. And so he walked down to his flight was canceled. He walked down to a charter flight and said, how much for the charter flight? And so then he goes and he just makes a sign and says, flights to London, $19 or whatever it was to cover the cost of the charter flight. And that was the first Virgin Airways flight.
Oh, wow.
No entities, no certifications, no, FAA, nothing, right? He made the decision. I got to get home. I don't want to pay for it, right? Like they got planes over there. They got people that want to get on planes over here. And he decided and he made it happen. And Virgin Airways was born that day. And so, we're so often, especially the more, I call it layered, the more layered your identity is. Race, ethnicity, gender, orientation, ability, the more layered you are, the more our minds start to go to, better get a certification for that. Better go get that doctorate. Better go get all the credibility so that way nobody can say that I didn't do the thing, right? My man Rich was just like, oh, y'all need to go somewhere? The plane right here. He sold a plane that wasn't his, right? And so, there's this thing that's like boiling it down. What do you want? What do you really want? What would make you feel fulfilled completely, right? Running a marathon, is that the thing? Getting the job, is that the thing? Most of these things that we think we want, if I say snap your fingers and you have it, how happy are you? People are like 6 or 7. That's crazy. Right. That's crazy. No, what is the place you want to be? Where do you want to end up? What do you want to make sure? Who do you want to make sure you bring along the way? What lines do you want to make sure you don't cross along the way? Right. And then that when you have a decision that is a toddler's run-on sentence, there are only a handful of ways that you can fulfill it. Versus if you say, I want to run a marathon, there's a million ways to prepare for running a marathon. Right. If you say, I want to be a VP or I want to be in the C-suite, there's a million ways to be in the C-suite. So the key is to make a decision about where you want to be that actually constricts your options. Because you're like, oh man, the only way I'm going to be that, be able to do this thing and stay healthy and make the money that I want and do these things. The only way I'm going to be able to do that is by doing this. Bam. Now you have eliminated all of that. Like, but maybe I should get a certification and maybe I should also do this other thing. And maybe I should research and maybe I should go to 10 different countries before I just move to one randomly. Maybe I just, right? Like figure out all the things that you want, make that complete decision, and then you'll start to see like, oh, wait, there's only like 3 ways that I can make this happen. And that's good, because most people end up investing too much time, money, energy, and effort in the cans that actually end up not adding up to the thing. And the thing is a 6 or a 7 on your desirability scale anyways.
I'm going to throw this in here. After you and I talked, I said a couple things to you, and then I started thinking for just a minute about, wow, how do you actually actualize that from a consulting standpoint? And then I thought about it, and just moved on. But here's what I'm hearing now. This is what I'm hearing today. What I'm hearing today is that in many ways, you treat CEOs and other executives almost like a kid again. You're saying to them, you're getting them to get in touch with the biggest things in their life that they want to accomplish. What would be the most fulfilling? And if they think about that from the standpoint of their business, then what that does is you silence a lot of noise and you get them to zero in on what would drive them, what would excite them, what would make them the happiest, could they get up every day motivated to do? And nobody ever really does that. They are just on the gerbil's wheel and they're running, and they don't even know if they're running in the right direction or anything. But you're silencing all of that and saying, I'm going to give you some freedom right here in this moment, in this space.
That's it.
Power back about what do you want to, what's the big thing that you want to do? And I see, Tommie, is executives coming out of that with a drive, a conviction, a will to make that happen. I think the details will start lining up for them. That's great.
Absolutely. I mean, one of my favorite case studies is this Black woman who grew up professionally in real estate development and ended up spinning out of a family office and launching her own business. But some of the early conversations that we were having pre-launch was like, okay, so you get this deal and you get that other deal, how fulfilled are you? How happy is your bank account? How happy is your balance sheet? And she's like, oh, wait, these fees aren't going to work. So we could go get 10 of these deals and it's just not going to work, right? So just getting them to envision, hey, what if this thing took no effort at all and it was just here, right? Is such a powerful question. And it caused her to completely shift her business model and to get specific about, oh, wait, the only way that we're going to get there is if we focus on these deals, these kinds of deals. And last year, her company that she co-founded did $700 million in real estate deals. And it came from that, like you said, it's like quieting that noise. But we feel like we gotta, especially in this like data-driven age, that we gotta wait for more information, and that and it's like, no, really, you gotta decide. You gotta decide. And I always say that you've gotta, make the right decision. Yes, by like whatever, data, opinions, all these things. You gotta make the right decision. And then after you make the decision, you have to make the decision right. And that's where you do the work. Now you have to retroactively, maybe you look back and you're like, whoo, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have done that. But guess what? We're on the other side of that decision. So I gotta do what it takes. I gotta feed that decision. I gotta do what it takes to make that decision right. But I love that thought of helping them tap into their inner child, helping them be a kid again and be curious and shut out the noise. I love that.
I love it too, Eric. I do, because I believe not only for the executives, but as we know about the arc of life, we are birthed into this childhood. And then oftentimes in our latter years of life, we revert back into childhood. We do at the age of 70, 80, or 90. All of these things are simplified, right? That as you share this with Dr. Apollo, I am going to, kind of stick my hand in that cookie jar and use it in our coaching as well.
Absolutely.
I think that's phenomenal. Not only the things that he shared with us today about complete decision, but really narrowing down to that, as my wife would say, juvenile essence. what is that juvenile essence that will have that executive say, this what gets me going? You know, and even from a financial perspective, maybe very well off. From a leadership perspective of here, I'm leading some 50 or 100,000 people, right? I work with a person right now, an executive, who is struggling mightily just to find his why again. Like, why? Heart issue, career, 50 years, 55 years in his career. The board loves him, does not want him to retire at all. And he's like, I need something to motivate me. What's my why? He, Dr. Apollo, he too did kind of a cross-country bicycle deal. I am going to shamelessly use these techniques and working with him and working with others. So thank you for dropping these pearls of wisdom.
I love it
this morning.
We're going to go a few minutes because we got started a little late, but I showed with another client of mine, I showed a video clip from Pursuit of Happiness where Will Smith was in there with his son, and his son was saying, I'm going to be a basketball star, and he was throwing up the basket, and Will grabbed the ball and said, he said, really, basketball talent, a lot of that is about genes. And if you basically, unfortunately, have the same genes as I have, so the likelihood of you being an NBA basketball star, and then he threw up a shot and banged off is unlikely. And then he saw the effect that discouragement had on his son. He put forth a dream, and he smacked it down. And then what he said to his son when he saw that, he said, you know what? He said, son, when you have a dream, don't let anybody in the world take that away from you, including me. And I think that that's what you're doing, is you're helping people to identify and tap into the dreams that they have for their lives. And I asked this client, so I asked people, what were the things that you dreamed of when you were a child? What did you dream that you wanted to do and be? How does that relate to the job that you're doing? And most of them were on silence. They're saying, well, I do this job in order to make money so that someday I can do my dream. That's not good.
Yeah.
And people
and maybe I'll figure out what my dream is then. Maybe I'll figure it out then, but I got to make the money first.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. So you're going to have the final word on this, and then Tommie will close us out. What's the message that you want to leave with our community around making big decisions?
Decide big is the motto. Decide big. This is one really tactical thing, and it's hard to coach yourself on this. But if you could ask one of your friends or your boss or your spouse, your partner, can and should and could are like the most dangerous words that we use in life. Can, should, could. Like, should is almost always wrapped around what other people think. I should do this thing. I should do another thing. I should. Can is linked to our insecurities. And so it's like, if I can do a thing, I could do it. Therefore, I should do it, right? Because it's something I can do. And then could is almost worthless as a word. And we use them all the time as can, should, and could. Replace those words, all of those words, replace them with need and see if the statement still adds up. Because need is what the things that you need to do, you need to do them based on the big decisions that you make, right? So rather than thinking about, well, I can do this, replace it and say, I can get certified in such and such. And replace that and say, I need to get certified in such and such. If that sentence doesn't make sense when you replace can with need, don't do that thing, please.
Right.
I can go get a law degree. You can do anything. Like Chris Rock said, you could drive a car with your feet, but it doesn't make it a good idea, right? So he used a little more colorful language than that. But that's one thing that I would say is that if you're trying to root out what your big decision is and you're having a hard time finding it, take all the things that you think you can, should, could do, and replace it with need and see if it still holds up. If it holds up, it's righteous. If it doesn't hold up to the need level of scrutiny, don't do it. Don't do it.
Before Tommie comes in, I'm cheated, so I'm like a preacher that's now got his own skirt closed. But I want you to also speak to our broader community and maybe even our nation right now. A lot of people are feeling so hijacked and overwhelmed by the activity that they've lost their ability to dream, to think about even making big decisions. There are people, shockingly, that are contemplating leaving the country just because of the state that we're in. What would you say to, what would you say to individuals that feel like they are not in a country and in a culture and environment that is facilitative for making big decisions?
Well, I mean, I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people who I said, I thought if I want to have peace of mind, where can I go? How can I put my family in a situation where that is going to be, where it's going to be easier to do that? But here's the thing. Making a big decision doesn't always mean an international move. Making a big decision about your work doesn't always mean quitting your job. Making a big decision about your marriage doesn't mean getting a divorce. Big decisions are not about finality. They're about creating intention in your environment. And so often people are thinking like, oh man, yeah, like this social situation, you don't have to. And so they try to solve it by doing another thing. Like, oh, when so-and-so comes over next time, I'm going to like argue my point harder, right? And that's how we think we're going to create more space socially for us, is like, oh, so-and-so is like a moderate, or so-and-so is a Trump supporter, so I'm going to argue my point against that person harder. But it's like, wait, how do you create a box that defines that relationship with this person? How do you say, hey, you know what? I don't want to talk politics with you because every time we do, it gets me hard. It makes it harder for me to enjoy our time together. That's a decision, right? That's affecting things at the decision level. So really it's about wherever you are, try to find solutions that are other than doing. What are the things that you can decide your way? You have one conversation with somebody and it impacts your relationship for the rest of the time. And again, that's how you can tell if it's a decision level intervention. Is it something you can do one time and it pays off forever? Moving to Panama in 30 days required us to do a whole bunch of stuff we've never done before. Required us not to have habits and discipline. It required us to check a bunch of boxes so we could make this thing true. And now that we've made this thing true, there's a bunch of stuff that's just going to be true forever. And so it's like, rather than waking up in the morning and thinking about your long to-do list and all the things that you got to do, think about what's a decision that I could make that would make it so I never had to do this stuff again. And again, sometimes it's redefining a relationship. Sometimes it's going to your manager and asking for clarification or for reset expectations or for more space, right? But it's solving things what's a thing I can do once that pays forever?
Let me reinforce the consistency of the decision that you made with your philosophy, because I don't want to leave here with people that I disagree with what you've done. Here's what you did that's different than what most people do. Most people think about, I want to leave this country, and they never do it. And so they're punished every day with the weight of the thought that I should leave the country. You weren't punished by that. It was a big decision that you wanted to make, and you made it. And now you're in some other country living out the philosophy that you're telling our community today. You're not sitting around with ambivalence, thinking that that's something that you say, I have the freedom through the power of making a decision to do something differently. And that speaks volumes, doesn't it, Tommie?
It does.
That's just you.
Remarkable.
You know what?
Go
You
ahead.
know what? If you're still here, this is your fault, people in the chat. If you're still here, we're just going to keep going. Okay. So one of the things what that this when people are on the fence about something, again, I move to decision. So when I'm working with an executive and they are continuously complaining about a person, I'm like, cool, let's come up with a plan to liberate this person. Let's come up with a plan to just let this person go. Right? Okay. And then they're like, whoa, wait a minute. It's like, hold on. I've been hearing about this person for the last 4 months about how they just can't get right.
Right.
And we've come up with plans for you to go talk to them or for you to reset the expectations, for you to do the things, and you haven't done the things. So they're not doing the things. You're not doing the things. Maybe this just needs to end. Let's go ahead and create, let's build that plan to get them out. Right. And so creating that, making that decision often frees them up. So like, okay, we have this option here. Right now, I can actually think about the solution. And that's what I see so many people do is they're like, oh, why I oughta just fire that person. All right, be about it then. Don't talk about it. Be about it. Let's make a decision. Let's go. And, you know, it was a really powerful, my wife and I were entrepreneurs together and really young in our marriage. And one of the most powerful things that we did was we went to marriage counseling when we were at rock bottom, and we made decisions about why we would leave each other. 3 reasons, 3 non-negotiable. You violate 1, 2, or 3, and I'm out, right? And that, especially when we were young in our marriage, you think you have 100 things to worry about to please your partner and to please yourself. And we reduced it down to 3 things, right? So it's like, 3 things. For my wife, it's respectful communication. She wants to feel like a partner and she wants to feel pursued. It took us 4 months to come up with those 3 things. 4 months to sort through all the stuff that keeps people on the fence, right? But once we had those things, we knew, okay, wait, I can go now and I can check those boxes. I can say, wait, have I been treating her like a partner? Have I been making her feel pursued? Have I been communicating with her in a respectful way? And so like actually moving to decision, even in a negative of like, okay, what would it take for us to get a divorce right now? Because maybe that's what we need to do. And it's like, oh, wait, no, we don't. We need to know where our boundaries are. We need to know what decision box is our marriage in, right? So I'm huge on if you're on the fence, then go to the negative, right? Go to the other way and say, okay, you know what? If you're thinking maybe I'm going to explore some other countries, or maybe I'm going to, no, not yet. You know what? Why don't you just close it down? Why don't we just say never talk about another country again?
Yes.
How are you going to make this life work?
Right.
How are you going to make this one work? And then if you can't make that one work, then you have to leave.
Right. Ooh.
Yeah.
Tommie.
No, this is phenomenal. My head is exploding. And Dr. Apollo and I, of course, we go to the same barber, so it's So, we have to, and we say this to a few of our guests. You know what I'm going to say, Eric?
Yep.
We have to have a part 2. I believe that for 3 reasons, and it is many, many more. For one, we believe that Eric and I, that if it weren't for any of our folks in our community, we would still have these conversations.
Right.
We know that he and I, we're in our 7th year. We're a little bit north of 350 episodes, right? And at the end of the day, it'll be he and I. But 2, we know that folks like Dr. Apollo Emeka makes it rich. The conversation is rich. And it's real, I think, is a conversation where we can walk away with some gems and some tools, right? And that's selfishly speaking.
Yeah.
Right? Because I have a lot of conversations with folks and I don't know where we're going, right? I don't know. And so I have to search, where can I either bring value or where can I learn? As I sat quietly today, part 3, I learned, and Dr. Apollo poured into me as I look at my adult stepsons and my younger biological son, all 4 of them are my sons, and say, I'm going to make a decision to have a conversation about our relationship.
Mm.
That's what hadn't been happening
That's powerful.
for several years,
Right.
that I've been trying to have the peace and be calm and weather and just say, just be silent. And the resentment, the anger had been piling up. I know go ahead yesterday and today I have release. So I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. I'm going to close out.
I love it.
Show, but if we need to hang around, Eric, we
Yeah,
can. But
yeah, absolutely.
again, community, we'd like to thank you. Every week, every Saturday, same time, same back channel. Thank you again for joining Eric and I and Dr. Apollo on another installment of
Diversity
Conversations. Thank you.
Take care.